Okay, so in this video, this is actually really targeting for developers and architects who are starting to build AI business solutions. Again, I only focus on the Microsoft 365 platform. This is part of our Microsoft 365 AI build series for 2026. How do you start the year off right with in this video, a really good architectural design that's going to support you for many different types of business applications that you can build on Microsoft 365. This is a framework that I've been using, me and my developers in our mastermind that we've been using. And I call it the mastermind because we challenge each other on the different loopholes and issues that we have in the framework, making it tighter. And so far it's been proven to be fantastic. So what we're going to do, again, this is going to be all about the whiteboard architectural design. We're not going to build anything in this video, but this will talk about the strategy, the key components of the architecture that's needed. It's really simple. We broke it down into 3 main layers. Those layers can get dense because of different use cases and things like that. But the good news is once you build that common core layer, and once you build 1 or 2 of these business layer solutions, you will see there's a lot of repeatable patterns that once you start getting the hang of it, you can start snapping these out in very short order. Obviously, when it comes to the common core, that's a piece that you don't want to keep building for solutions. It's meant to be common across all your solutions. And what we're doing, we're leveraging what we already know. So you're like me, you already know Power Platform to some extent. And when you know Power Platform is this huge umbrella that encompasses many different technology stacks, really focused on the Power Automate within the Power Platform, not necessarily Power Automate desktop, but mostly for the cloud flows and solutions. The other thing, solutions are going to be key for this in the Power Automate. So in order to get this layer and this reusability and this modular type approach, you have to use the solution feature within Power Automate. That is what enables you to have one flow call another child flow, passing parameters, have it do its thing, and then return with a response, right? So solutions are going to be key with that. Solutions outside of this context are really meant to deploy solutions from one environment to the next. When I say environments, I'm talking about Power Platform environments within your same 365 tenant. We're not talking about spinning up M365 dev tenant and the M365 QA tenant and the M365 prod tenant. We're doing all of this in the context of a single tenant. Most clients are built that way, even Fortune 500, Fortune 1000, regardless if you're supporting 3,000 users, 20,000 users, hundreds of thousands of users like Microsoft or Ernst & Young or some of these bigger outfits that have huge employee counts or associate counts within their tenant. They're pulling this off with a single tenant. So we're going to do the same and create these virtual environments within that tenant. The Power Platform is primed for that. Azure is primed for that. You know, how you leverage and segment out your resource groups, so on and so forth. This solution must support some of the basic architectural designs. So things like reusable patterns and common services to where there's a unit of work that's common, regardless of the business application at the top. You want them to be able to share that common service. Do not repeat yourself. So in the context of AI, and the AI that we're calling is the Azure OpenAI in Microsoft Foundry, we do not want to create for each one of our different business apps at this layer a copy of the HTTP request. So you want to have one HTTP request that interacts with the AI endpoint, and then you put in all the parameters and switches and knobs and things along those lines to where the business layer can make these different calls. And when I say make these different calls, you may have a business application that requires deep thinking. You may have a business application that requires passing a message with chat history. Maybe there's an interactive chatbot, or maybe it has memory requirements within that business application. You may have a business application that needs to get real-time data from the internet, right? More than just what the AI is grounded on, like the last timestamp of the data that is trained on. You need more recent data, like things that happened yesterday or the last few hours or sometime this week. So all of those different scenarios, as you call in the AI service, we want to make sure that we can interact with that. Batching is another one, right? So one of the solutions that we built using this framework is many different scenarios. But one was an SOP scenario, 6,000 documents. We have to analyze each one of these documents. So these documents can range from 1 page to 6 pages or 1 page to 15 pages. So the number of pages vary within this document. So these documents had to be read by the AI, classified by the AI, metadata extracted by the AI, so on and so forth. And you have to do that 6,000 times plus the number of pages that within that particular document. That's where batching becomes critical. Getting that work done off hours or as a low priority with the AI, and your price per token is significantly less. I want to say, I can't remember the exact number, but I think it's like a 75% discount by leveraging batching, right? And then that's when, with batching comes with JSONL, right? That's a large JSON file that you send to the large language model, and baked inside of there are many different instructions. So I say all that to say, this architectural design must support all of those different scenarios. Here's one other use case that's very interesting that actually goes against what we're going to build. I consider it as an edge case, but we're still going to build it within our framework, and that's the real-time API. The real-time API is when you need to interact with the large language model AI, and this is where your voice agents use it. It's almost like real-time, like you send it and the response gets streamed back to the agent. So that way you're not waiting for the entire completion of the response. If it has an answer, it's sending that to you and streaming that back to you in bits or in bytes. That technology requires more of a WebSocket interaction with the large language model. So that's not be that real-time API response time, that streaming is not supported by Power Automate or Logic apps. So in that scenario, we need to graduate up to an Azure function and then make sure that we enable WebSockets and then the event grid and all these other things that we have to enable within Azure. We're going to treat that as an edge case, but that's absolutely something we want to support. So we're going to take a look at that. So if you look at the whiteboard, the way that the way I look at this is that really you have this bottom layer. We're going to call that the common service, and we'll talk about what goes inside there. And then on top of here, I'm going to bring this up into different chunks, and this is going to be what we call the business application logic layer. And you can have one or many of these. And as you building up business apps, this is just going to grow. But the understanding is anything that this business application need that's outside of the unique business logic for that application will interact with the common service. So if it needs anything from the AI, it's calling the common service to do that. It's not going to spin up its own version, and I mentioned this, of the HTTP request against the large language model. So we're going to have very centralized common patterns on how to address this. And in this common service, you're going to have things like, how do you get things in and out of the prompt catalog? How do you handle chat history when it comes to the large language model? What parameters did you need to pass to get the mini version of the AI? What parameters do you need to pass to have the AI do real-time web calls on your behalf? So, and so on and so forth. Here's another one common use case here in this common services. How do you create or extract out the OCR for a file blob, right? And this is where this is a little bit different than the OpenAI large language model. This is actually the document intelligence services hosted in Azure and all the different document types that it support, right? So we need the ability to, if you pass it a PDF, 1 or 1,000 pages, it needs to systematically go through that PDF, extract out the OCR, and return plain text and a confidence level that it was able to extract word for word of all the content within that PDF. Also in here, this is one we have to graduate to, and I don't have it, is the visual AI. The visual AI is more than just OCR. The visual AI is that if I pass you an image of a woman in a yellow raincoat holding a red umbrella, zero text in that image, so it's not OCR, so there's there's no text in that image to extract out. This is a visual, meaning that you need to look at this photo and send back a description of what's in that photo. And the same is for video. You need to watch the video and send back a description of what you watched for the different pieces of the video. So that's going to be the visual AI. We're going to have to grow into this. I actually do not have a pattern in place for this, but there are use cases where this pattern needs to be in place, and it belongs here at the common services. So here, what we call common services will be this layer. And this is where we're going to start building in our next video when it comes to the AI. This other layer that sits on top of this, as we mentioned, will be your business services or your business logic layer. And when you look at this, and if you look at this in the context of Power Automate, these will be different solutions, right? So these will be different solutions. So you would have, if you imagine this is your Power Automate, and let's just call this the dev environment, and you understand that in Power Automate, you have that drop down to where you can toggle between the different virtual environments within Power Automate or the Power Platform in general. And then you're going to have in the left navigation this link for solutions. And in that, when you click on solutions, you're going to have a list of various solutions within that environment. So everything that's red, these are going to be your different business applications. So if you're building a solution for SOP, this would be the solution for that. If you're building a solution for contracts, this would be a solution for that. If you have a newsletter, micro-targeted email solution, that would be the solution for that. So every business solution or business app will have its own solution and all the flows and calls needed to make that happen. What inside of these business layers, what you will not have is the common services. The common service would be a separate solution. And all of these enablers in the common service will be part of your common service solution. And your business app, your business solution would then, when needed, call the respective flow from that common service, and that's how you create that reusability. This here requires, I would say, a fair amount. It's not horrible, but it's a fair amount of engineering that's needed for this. The benefit of having this comment is, one, you build it once and reuse it infinite number of times. That's the benefit. And this is I'm explaining this, but this is basic architecture design goals that we want to achieve. But this is how we do it in the Power Platform, right? So this is going to be that common service for their environment. And anytime we need a change, it's going to change here. The changes will always adhere to the input parameters. That would never change. And the output response will never change. That's our agreement with that business layer, is that these parameters and the responses would never change. Now, we may add optional parameters, but we'll never break the contract that we have initially. So because of that, we want to be well thought out on how we design this. We never get it right day one. Never. We never get it right. But we always try to minimize breaking changes, and we try to encapsulate the change that's needed to make it unaware or unimpactful to the caller. Prime example of this, and this is what, if you look at this large language model here, we always update these models. So we started with GPT 3.5. I'm talking about OpenAI, 3.5. And then we went to 4.0. And then we went to 0.1. And then we went to 4.1. Then we went to like mini. And then we had to make mini and nano and all these other options available. All those upgrades are encapsulated within this common service flow. So here, the business layer, they never ever specify what model they want to use. They request, this is the level of smarts I need. I need thinking. I need standard. I need mini. I need nano. So we give that decision to the business layer, but which version of the model is the responsibility of the common service. That's really important because the rate of change that we experience with this architecture design is right here in the common service. And so there's a lot to unpack here, and there's a lot that we try to group. And then we have different flavors of this AI, right? So the different flavors is that we have one AI to where you pass us the message array, right? As a caller, you pass us the message array. So it's really up to the business layer to say, these are our messages that need to be sent to the AI. When I say the message array, what do we exactly? So we know that there's an array of messages that get sent, and this is an OpenAI. And basically, there's an order of where these messages have to be stacked in the array. So for the initial call, you pass the system message and you pass the user message. And then what the AI would do, it responds with what you call the assistant or the response to that query, right? So you may have a system message like, you are a marketing expert. Here is a video. I'm going to send you a video transcript, and I need you to create the best viral YouTube title, the best viral YouTube description, and the best viral hashtag for a YouTube video. And also, I need you to describe and provide the specs of a viral YouTube thumbnail. We're not asking it to generate the thumbnail. We're asking it to describe the specs or the prompt for the thumbnail in the event we send it off to a different service. For me, from what we've found from our research and R&D, the best image generator as of January 3rd, 2026 is Nana Banana Pro by Gemini. But it's horrible with creating the prompts, right? So your prompt will have to be very specific and very detailed specified. But if you give it a very specific prompt, it generates beautiful images, and the text on the images are 99% accurate, meaning that they're spelled correctly, they're using legible letters. And since the Nana Banana Pro, I'm going on a tangent here, but since Nana Banana Pro, I stopped using Canva, right? Canva, and I would never use Canva from an API perspective. I was always using Canva more of a user, finding my template. Yeah, it's easy to swap out the words and stuff like that, but it's time. With Nana Banana Pro Gemini, you give it a beautiful spec, you pass it, and you get a viewable response. So I say all that to say, this instruction is going to give us everything that we need for a YouTube post, the same for a LinkedIn post, the same for an Instagram post, the same for a TikTok. And the response will be still text of the spec of what is needed for that particular post type, right? Now, the second call in this message array could be, so let's just say this is the second call in that message array. So it's going to be the original system prompt, because now we have memory baked in. It's going to have the original user message of, hey, I need this YouTube video. Here's the transcript. And it knows what to do because in the system prompt, it tells it, we need a title, we need a description, we need a spec for the thumbnail, we need the hashtag. That's all in the green system prompt. And then it responded with its title, description, hashtag. That's the AI. But then you come back and say, give me 4 different other titles, because maybe you didn't like the title that it responded back here in the black message. So the red is the second user message that says, give me 4 other options for the title. You're not repeating, regurgitating what you said here, and you're not reiterating the system. So the history needs to pass all these messages, and the response would then be, okay, here are 3 more titles, because it has the context for that. So you always have to send it the context. So allowing the business layer to control the message array in the history and all this other good stuff is the response from there. But what we will do, and this is a lot of work, especially in Power Automate, this could be a fair amount of engineering. We don't want to repeat that. So what we will do is provide different utilities and the common services layer to allow them to do this easily. They still need to orchestrate it at the business layer, but they have the tools to where they're not re-engineering that every time they need like chat history, or they need to get a prompt from the prompt catalog, or they need to do a query, a vector query against a vector database, so on and so forth. We're going to make that super easy for them in that common services layer. So I say all that to say this common services layer, we have different services as well as utility flows available for the business application. If you do this right, this common services layer, you should be able to start a new business application or solution with 60% of what you need already built. So at this business layer, you're only focused on the 40%. And the beauty of this, usually when you come to this business layer, after you build several of these over time, you're going to have something very similar to what you need to build, but you just need to make a few different tweaks to pull it off. And Power Automate supports that. So now I can come here, I can do a save as, I can rename it, give it a new name. I have the same guts. And now I come in here and I tweak. I don't need this. I need this. I need to add this. I need to rename this. And here's the new data source. And click, boom, I'm done. That's how you start to shrink the ship time for new business applications. But you gotta have a framework in place to support that. Here's our last layer. The last layer is the UI layer. In this UI layer is where your business application can take on many different faces, right? So prime example, let's talk about that YouTube marketing sample that I had before. So in the YouTube marketing sample, it's going to say, oh, here's the transcript. It already has the system message to know what to do with that transcript. This is the transcript. That's what makes it unique. And then it responds back with the YouTube title, description, hashtag, and then the spec for the thumbnail. Now, how do you trigger that? One way you can trigger that using an API endpoint. I love this solution. This is a service-oriented architecture. This opens you up to reuse this and call that YouTube social media, let's call it an agent, in many different scenarios, right? You can call it with Postman and get exactly what you need. You can call it from a React app and get exactly what you need. A .NET Core app and get exactly what you need. A SharePoint web part and get exactly what you need. Another Power Automate with an HTTP action and get exactly what you need, right? So you separate the interface of how you interact with the business layer with this UI layer. Now that's an API. Another solution could be, I want to do a React app. I have a React app that's going to call this. I may have a Power Apps Canva app or model-driven app or a SharePoint form, wherever the case may be, that may call this, right? So it doesn't matter what the UI is. I'm separating that from the business logic and giving it way more flexibility, right? This could be even a Copilot agent. I have a Copilot agent. This is my cloud flow that does all the work. And maybe I have a parameter on the transcript text that you have to pass, and it will do all of the work, and it will respond back. So this could be Copilot. It can be an API. It could be a Power App. It could be an agent in AI Foundry. It could be a SharePoint web part. It can be a agent within Microsoft Teams, right? So you have all of this capability, but the key is to separate, this is the UI on how I interact with it, but this is the business layer that has all the logic to make this happen. And it's really important to separate the two, so that way you can get ultimate flexibility. So where when there's a new use case that come up, you meet with a product manager and they say, oh, it would be great if this was our downstream process and we have this legacy application that's already doing some of this workflow, and we just needed to pass it the transcript and you respond back with all the details needed for the YouTube video. And then, of course, and I'm talking about YouTube, of course, the natural transition to this, or progression, the natural progression to this would be, you know what? Now that we have that for YouTube, now we need to do this for LinkedIn posts. Now we need to do this for TikTok videos. Now we need to do this for Instagram. Now we need to do this for Facebook Reels, like that. And now it's just, and this is where that you copy and paste. This is where, oh, I already have this for YouTube. LinkedIn has a different parameter, right? Like their thumbnail specs are different. So the prompt is different. All I'm going to do is copy this, my YouTube one, paste it, go in there and tweak what's needed for LinkedIn, and be up and running in a fraction of the time, right? Like I said before, we've been using this model and we tweaked it because we found gaps, we found issues and all this other good stuff, and we perfected it. So now in the next set of videos, the goal is to build this common services. I'm not going to build all these boxes, but I'm going to build enough to where you have enough to get going. We're going to build a few of these business applications. Of course, when we build a business layer to make use of it, that we have some type of UI or interface layer. So we will build these. And I think ongoing, it's just going to be rinse and repeat. And you will see me like, I don't know, maybe week 4, week 5, wherever the case may be, where I'm building this and just referencing this in the video. I'm not going to show how to build this common service for every business layer video. I'm going to just say, hey, here's the SOP. This is how you build SOP business applications on Microsoft 365, right? And I'm going to reference everything we build in the common services, but in the next set of videos where we build the common service will be the only videos that I will record building out that common service, unless there's a new service we need to add to the common because I don't have it, and now this business application requires that. Okay. So this is, let me know if you have any use cases or questions in the comments of what you would like to see built. You only have a few days from the time that this video is posted before I start building out these common services. So it's really important that if you have a use case in the what if scenario, to drop it in the comments so that way I can tackle it. I'm just going to scan here to make sure I cover everything I wanted to mention, and it looks like I did. So I think from this point forward, it's all about fingers to the keyboard and start building this out. So let's get started, and I'll see you in the next video.